I am now excited to begin our webinar, 2023 Child Care Provider Grant. My name is Kimberly Reinhardt, and our presenter today is Jean Moore, the Assistant Division Director of Early Childhood at the Office for Children. Welcome, Jean.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited to share again with you that the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors has approved a new grant program, the 2023 Child Care Provider Grant, which is to help eligible child care programs and family child care providers that have been affected by the COVID-19 public health emergency. During this webinar, we will provide information about the grant eligibility rules and the application process. As stated earlier, please enter any questions you have in the question box, and if we have time at the end, we will answer some of those questions. We will also gather all of the questions and create a frequently asked questions that you will receive later. Please note that there might be some questions that I am unable to answer today. We will make sure to forward those questions to our grant administrator, LEDC. And lastly, we are recording this presentation. And later this week, we will email all programs a link to the recording and a copy of this presentation so that you have all of the information, including all of the contact information like phone numbers and email addresses for the contact grant administrator. So some of you may remember that at the end of 2021, the county offered the Active and Thriving Community Grant Program, which child care programs and family child care providers were eligible to apply for. Similar to that previous grant, the 2023 Child Care Provider Grant is funded by the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, with the primary goal to support child care centers and family child care providers that have been impacted by the pandemic. For this grant, the county has set aside $2.5 million, and this represents the third financial support opportunity that the county has funded for child care programs since the pandemic started. There are a few eligibility criteria for this grant. First, the program must meet the U.S. Treasury definition of small business. You must have a current state license or a county permit or an infant toddler family daycare letter. Your program must have been operating before March 1st, 2020. And the reason for this is that one of the requirements of the ARPA funds from the federal government is that, that it is to support businesses who were operating before the pandemic started. They weathered the instability of the pandemic and are still operating today. This grant is open to programs and providers in Fairfax County, including the towns of Herndon, Vienna, and Clifton. Programs and providers in the city of Fairfax and the city of Falls Church are not eligible for this grant. And finally, your program must currently be open and available to take care of children. So the application will open next Tuesday, June 20th, starting at 10 a.m. and will close at 11:59 p.m. on July 21st. The registration link will be available starting June 20th at the Fairfax County website, www.fairfaxcounty.gov, search Child Care Grant. We'll also make sure that we email all programs the link information as well. You do not need to be rushed to be the first in line to get your application in. This is not a first come, first serve basis. And we are committed to not only allowing adequate time for you to apply, but also to simplify the process. Please also note that the applications are submitted online. The application has 3 phases. First, phase 1 is the initial eligibility check and submission of required documents. Phase 2 is the submission of eligible expense invoices, and phase 3 is the submission of signed agreement and banking information. And we will talk a little bit more about all 3 phases in the coming slides. I do want to note that if we receive more applications than the funding allows, there will be a lottery to select eligible recipients at the conclusion of phase 1. And we will have more information on how that will work later on in the presentation. This slide is just sharing with you a brief description of the timeline of the different phases. As you can see, the most important phase as we start off is the phase 1. The application will open next Tuesday, June 20th at 10 a.m. and applications are due by 11:59 p.m. on July 21st, 2023. And then phase 2 will be from June 26th to September 10th. And then phase 3 will be from September 25th to November 27th. So now let's find out a little bit more about the 3 phases. In phase 1, we will be confirming your initial eligibility, and if eligible, you will be required to submit some documents. Some examples of information that you will be entering include your contact information, like your business name, the family childcare provider name, the address, the phone number, email, and information about your program, including your license and permit information, your program capacity, and whether or not you were in business before March 1, 2020. If you are eligible, then you will be required to submit a copy of your license or your permit or your infant toddler family daycare letter and a copy of your business professional occupation license, the BPOL. In phase 2, you will be asked to submit documentation of eligible expenses. Eligible expenses must have been incurred between March 13, 2020 and the date of your grant application. Please note that this funding cannot be used for the same expenses that have been covered by a previous COVID-19 fund that you may have received from a federal or state or local funding program, including the Payroll Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan or the EIDL loans, RISE grants, or the state CARES grants for childcare programs. In phase 3, you will be sent a grant award agreement that must be signed and returned back to the grant administrator. And you will also provide banking information as the funds will be distributed via direct deposit. So this is the tentative list of what funds can be used for, and the final list of allowable expenses will be listed in the application when you put in your application in the portal. Just in a summary, the funds can be used for supplies, for COVID prevention or mitigation efforts, and some operational costs. Please note that if funds are to be used for food expenses, only that amount that is not funded through the USDA Child and Adult Care Food Program is eligible. And also note that no grant funds can be used to pay debts, to close the business, or start a new business. Oops. In addition, we advise that you consult with your business financial advisor or tax specialist for specific tax guidance. All right. The next 2 slides offer a little bit more information and examples of eligible expenses. And so I understand there's a lot of information and words on these slides. But again, please note that you will be sent a copy of this presentation so you can have it available to you as a resource. And as mentioned before, if we receive more applications than funding permits, there is a plan for allocation prioritization. If the number of eligible applicants exceed the available dollars, programs and providers that participate as a vendor in the county's child care subsidy program will be prioritized. And then after that, if funding remains, there will be a lottery for all remaining eligible applicants. The amount of the grant award is based on your permit or license capacity. As you can see here on the screen, family childcare providers with a capacity of 1 to 4, the grant award is $2,000. Family childcare providers with a capacity of 5 to 12 children is $3,000. Center-based childcare with 13 to 40 children capacity is $7,000. Center-based childcare with 41 to 120 children capacity is $10,000. And then finally, our center-based childcare programs with over 121 children capacity is $15,000. We are pleased to be partnering again with the Latino Economic Development Center, or LEDC, who will be administrating the grant. They will be the primary support for any questions or assistance that you may have. And there will also be a live chat in the application portal that is available to you to help you as you submit your application. If you have any questions or need assistance with the application, there will be technical assistance available online, like I said, as you enter your application. And in addition, you can email LEDC at ccpgfairfax@ledcmetro.org. And for our family childcare providers, the Women's Business Center of Northern Virginia is also available to support and answer any questions that you may have. And their contact information is also on here. Email info@cbponline.org, and phone number is 703-768-1440. And remember, again, you will receive a copy of this presentation, so you'll have all of this contact information on hand. So we do have a few minutes for some questions, and the website that I mentioned earlier has a lot of other questions, some main questions that you may have, but I just wanted to go over 3 main ones that might be in your mind right now. So the first one is, I received a COVID-19 related grant previously. Can I apply for this one? And yes, you can, but remember, funding cannot be used for the same expenses that have been covered by another COVID-19 program, and we listed those here on the slide. So if you got a PPP, an EIDL loan, anything along that line, and you've already used that for some expenses, you cannot have this grant pay for those same expenses. The next question, my childcare center is a franchise or part of a large childcare company that has over 500 employees. But as a standalone center, do we qualify? So your organization must meet the definition of a small business by the U.S. Treasury to qualify for this grant. And simply put, if your center shares the same EIN with a corporation of over 500 employees, you would not be eligible. But again, check with the U.S. Treasury Department definition and also with your corporate office to see if you would qualify for this. And then the third question on here, so I opened my business after March 2020. Why am I not eligible for this program? As mentioned before, the ARPA Fiscal Recovery Fund specifies that the grants are only allowable for businesses that were open and operating prior to March 2020, which was the beginning of the pandemic. And so we have a few more minutes before the end. So if there are some questions in the question box, Kimberly, we have some time to answer them.
Absolutely. So I think you've covered many of the questions that came on earlier on in the presentation, but a few have simply been how to access the application. So if you could just reiterate that answer, I put it in the chat, but I think it bears repeating.
Right. So the application can be accessed from our website at www.fairfaxcounty.gov. Search for childcare grant. There will be, when you go there, when you receive that, you can go there even today, and you can find out all of this information that we just went over. On June 20th, though, on that page, there will be a link, and starting at 10 a.m., and you push that link, and it will take you to the LEDC website where you will enter your application. So you can't do anything now. It will open at 10 a.m. on June 20th.
Thank you. And several people have asked if the money can be used to pay employees or yourself.
So the expense list does cover things like payroll, but as we mentioned before, if you've already, you can't use this fund if you've already used other funds to pay the payroll. So the other part of that is that I don't have all the specific answers right now because there are tax implications, obviously, but LEDC, which is the grant administrator, you can submit that question to them and they will help guide you and how to present the documentation that you must submit in order to be eligible to receive the grant for those expenses. So the simple answer is yes, but there are some criteria guidelines.
Thank you. And then we've had several people ask as well, if they do not have employees or they do not currently have children, are they eligible?
Absolutely. As long as you have a current license or a permit and you are available to take care of children, you are eligible for this grant. You don't need to be full, or anything like that. We just need to ensure that you have a valid license and that you are available to take care of children.
We've had people ask if they are part of a program that has several different sites. Does each site need to apply separately?
I don't have a right answer to that right now. What I can say is that if each site has its own EIN number, then they can, but if they don't, they're going to have to check to see if they do meet the definition of a small business. And again, when they enter the application next Tuesday, there are questions, they can enter this question as well, and LEDC will be able to kind of guide them through this process.
Thank you. And then a few other questions have come in that are quite specific to the individual, which I think we can handle separately and offline, or we will provide additional information in the FAQ that we send out. But we have had people ask again for clarification on which parts of Fairfax County are covered and what are the cities that are not covered.
So Fairfax County and the towns of Herndon, Vienna, and Clifton, they are eligible. Unfortunately, City of Fairfax and City of Falls Church are not eligible for this grant.
Perfect. And then this is the last question, and then the rest of the questions we will gather and we will provide answers later. And we will also, again, send a copy of this PowerPoint and a copy of the recording for those of you who have asked for a copy of it. It will be sent to everybody. But someone asked, you provided information and points of contact by the LEDC and the Women's Business Center. Are there specific reasons that you should contact each? Who should you contact for what, since there are two groups to contact?
Right. I would recommend asking most questions to LEDC because they are the grant administrator. For the Women's Business Center of Northern Virginia, that is primarily for our family childcare providers. And for that, if you have questions just about eligible expenses or just tax questions, things along that line, they can help guide you. But I would start with LEDC first because they are the grant administrator.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you all for all of the questions that are coming in. We are gathering all of these questions. So again, please be on the lookout for a follow-up email with additional resources, FAQs, the recording, and a copy of the PowerPoint. A huge thank you to Jean for providing this wonderful information. And please look forward to receiving an email. Remember, this is a informational session only, and there will not be certificates, but there will be much information provided to you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.